All right, Kiss Army, welcome to the KissFAQ Podcast. Thank you for giving us your time today and letting us into your head. I hope we don't do any damage. This is a Kiss-related podcast by the board, for the board. We hope that you enjoy. We'd love you to support this show. Please like, follow, and subscribe to us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Your likes and subscription helps us to grow and attract interviews and content. So please retweet and share our posts. Your contributions are appreciated.
Greetings and welcome to episode 498 of the KissFAQ Podcast. I am your host and your favorite YouTuber in Kiss-related world, Mark Anthony K. I know you love me, and guess what? You're going to have me hosting the whole episode here, so get used to it, okay? So joining me tonight is my good friend, the voice of reason, Ken. How you doing?
I'm doing good, thanks.
And my brother from another mother in Stockholm, Sweden area, Daniel. How are you doing?
I'm just fine.
Actually, you're more north of Stockholm, aren't you?
Yeah, way up north.
Way more north. Okay. Well,
I live next door to the polar bears.
Okay. So you're up in like Santa Claus area around there. Okay.
Santa Claus, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So as you can see, we are short our fearless leader, Julian, who has been away on some other errands that he had to do. In fact, one of the things that he was very busy with, and you probably noticed that we have another episode that's already been posted, episode 497, which is the Buffalo Rock City 2 interview. If you haven't checked it out yet, please go check it out. It's a fantastic interview with Julian and the guys who made another fantastic tribute record to Kiss. So you might want to check that out. And we might even be joined by Lonnie. There he is. Our good friend. Our good friend Lonnie has joined us. It's just like magical words coming out of my mouth, and Lonnie appears. How are you doing, Lonnie?
Excellent. How are you? Never been better.
Great. So we just did this short introduction. I reminded everybody how much they love me in the YouTube world, and they'll be having me as a host for today, so they'll be very pleased with that. Oh, and just to let you know, I got a burp out of the way early, so for you people who don't like that, you can rest assured now. Okay, so.
There's still a lot of show to go.
Oh yeah, and I just ate too, so don't worry.
Oh, no.
So it'll be a good evening. Yes. So let's take a look at the news first before we get started on the topic for this week. So there's quite a bit of news going on in the world right now in the Kiss land. Some of it may not be like, extra exciting news, but it's news nonetheless. And now let's talk about it as a group here. First thing is beware of the Kiss counterfeit vinyl. As you know, on the certain groups and message board things, the discussion has been out about a surge now of counterfeit vinyl that are starting to come out. I believe our good friend, the voice of reason, has an image that he can post of an example of this counterfeit imagery. There you go, which is the a fake promo copy sticker and the fake white label center labels of the debut Kiss album. Now, as we all know, this is an alarming thing for one reason. To get a legitimate copy of this album is quite a bit of money. Ken, you would agree, I'm sure, because you own one of these records, or do you not?
I own one that I bought probably about 5 years ago, I guess. Pretty good quality. And it's not a counterfeit, unfortunately. But it wasn't cheap then. And now these go anywhere. I think they want to go anywhere, if it's in good shape, anywhere from 500 or up for something, so it's crazy. There's this news that there's these, labels out there and stickers, and they can just slap this stuff on a new pressed or copied pressed, vinyl of a promo. I don't know if they can match the plates or match the runouts, the runout groove area. Where it has the numbers and the writing in there. So if that matches, then that's even a bigger problem.
Well, don't forget too, you'll have to match also the song listing, because don't forget this only shows Deuce to Black Diamond. So they'll have to find an old OG pressing of this at least.
They would have to have a original like 90 NB 901, right?
Exactly. So
for that.
So Daniel, I know that you're not exactly the biggest collector of vinyl, but do you have any concerns about this sort of thing happening?
No, I'm really more interested in seeing the back door in Lonnie's room there. He opened the door.
The laundry room or whatever.
I've never seen what he has inside there. There's some bodies hanging there, I think, or something.
Bodies,
no.
huh?
Yeah, you see the body bags there.
It might be from Halloween. It might have been from Halloween.
Maybe Julian is in one of those. I don't know.
Some skeletons in the closet there. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I really don't care a lot about the vinyl stuff. I got the vinyls that I enjoyed, and it's mostly the original albums. I don't really care about pressings and stuff like that, but I understand that there are quite a few Kiss fans that do, so it's important to tell them so they don't go and get these false counterfeit vinyl.
Yes. So we'll go over to Lonnie. Before we start, we were quite impressed by the open door there, how we got to see into your world a little bit further back there. So we were making some interesting comments. You might want to backtrack later and take a look at what we saw. Yeah. So we were looking to see if Julian was hiding out in your closet there. So, but in any case, this vinyl thing, the counterfeit vinyl. Any concerns? You're a vinyl collector of sorts. So do you have any concerns of this?
I guess. I mean, it's kind of crazy, but it's not surprising, though, at the same time. I mean, there's jackasses out there everywhere that'll do, things like that to try to make themselves some money and, and in the process, lesser the value of something that you paid a lot of money for. It's no different than a lot of the crap that goes on out there. So it's not surprising, but it is concerning. And I hope that what Kendall's saying, I hope that there are legitimate and recognizable ways to tell that, no, this is bullshit type thing, and I hope that whoever's doing this, one, doesn't get away with it more than, if they have gotten away with it, I hope that comes to an end pretty soon. And I hope they get found out.
Yeah.
Agreed. One thing I do want to bring up, though, really quickly about this is that there's also another thing that came up, and I believe that we talked about a little bit last time, was this notorious Kiss 50 anniversary box that's coming out. Now, I understand, this rattled a few cages as well. I noticed online with a lot of people of note as well that were not too pleased about this. What I find interesting about this, though, is that, okay, they're telling you that you're going to get a copy of the original record, and there's a CD version of it as well, and this and that, and they have a bunch of other live things in there as well. Now, I can see why they might get a little concerned, because they're offering an official so-called pressing, like a first album pressing in there, which is not really official. It's probably a counterfeit pressing of it in there. But these boxes are nothing new, people. I don't know what the big problem is with this, because there are so many hundreds of boxes. I mean, I've seen so many collectors out there when they do a zoom in on their their vinyl shelf, like how Ken has his vinyl there. I've seen so many of these boxes: Hotter Than Hell tours, Dressed to Kill tour, the Unmasters. People are collecting these all the time. So obviously not a lot of you are having too much issue with this if you're all buying it, And I understand that, there's some fantastically made ones, but the audio on most of these are shit. Like these live recordings are terrible. But I'm just curious what your guys' thoughts are on that, because I mean, it seems like there are people are upset about it, but then there's a whole bunch of the Kiss community who are all for these things. I mean, what are your views on that? Let's start with Daniel.
You have seen quite a few fans over here in Sweden that collect those things. And they keep them, and then they sell them on some in some of the Facebook groups, and people pay good money for them. So there's a market for them. Yeah. And at this point in time, most Kiss fans seem not even they don't listen to the records. They just like how they look, and therefore shitty live recordings doesn't really matter, because they never listen to the records, but they look good on the shelf. And for many people, that's the main thing at this point in time, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah. Ken?
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with the live recording stuff, even though a lot of it doesn't sound very good. But the live recording stuff, they do a lot of picture disc stuff. That's fine that they're doing that. But on this one, when they're trying to pass off an actual debut album, I mean, that's not bootleg anymore. It becomes counterfeit because you're saying you're copying exact, a copy of their debut. Which version of the debut, I don't know, whatever. But I think that part is definitely wrong. And when they start doing that kind of stuff, Kiss or Universal needs to come after those guys.
Yeah. What about you there, America?
Yeah, I think Ken has a point that it's fine. People selling bootleg concerts that don't sound very good is not a new thing. That's been going on for obviously years and years and years. But when you try to market something that is copyrighted by the record company, then that it's the original album or any album for that matter. When you start selling that and profiting off of that, the lawyers are going to come get you and they're going to find you.
Oh yeah, that's definitely not a good thing. And I mean, that's the main thing. I mean, for this guy, whoever's doing it, I mean, if he wanted to stay under the radar, I mean, if he just took that original album out of there and just left the live stuff in there and just, promoted it as a 50th anniversary with that, he probably would have had less heat, I think, because there's a lot of those other boxes out there like that as well. So, and speaking of heat, let's get on to our next topic of discussion here in the news section. Ace Frehley says his new album is going to make Paul Stanley look like an imbecile, as reported by Metal Addicts. So obviously, Mr. Frehley is extremely confident about his new live album. I believe it's called 10,000 watts or volts or something like that. Yeah. He seems extremely excited about it. So excited, in fact, that he's saying that Stanley's going to be putting that big boot of his in his mouth about what he said about Ace Frehley. So I haven't heard anything from this record. I don't think any of us have heard anything yet. I don't think, unless something's leaked and we don't know about it. But the rumor is that the guys from Trickster, two guys from Trickster actually, I think, helped out with this record. So there's more confidence that it could be back to more of his rootsy stuff because those guys are good friends with him, and they probably did a little come on, Ace, try this out, and maybe he listened, and maybe we are going to get a stellar album. But I'm curious to your guys' reactions. Let's go to the voice of reason first. What did you think of this whole Paul Stanley's going to look like an imbecile comment?
Yeah, I mean, we've heard it before, and I, whether it will make him look like an imbecile, I don't know. If it's so good and fantastic, like anywhere near the 1978 solo album, that might kind of make Paul or whatever look bad. Like why would he mar Kiss's performance if they had Ace and or Peter on stage with them for the final performances? Because he's saying that it wouldn't be good with them on there. It would screw up the performance. So,
but it's interesting, Ken. You said something though that I had to immediately jump on here. Is that you said that will it be as good as the 78 solo record? Does it need to be as good as a solo 78
I don't
solo
think it
record?
Needs to be.
Could it be as good as Trouble Walking, for example? I mean, Trouble Walking was a good album. No offense, but he hasn't made a record that good yet. So, go on.
I think if it shows, that he's still vital as far as playing solos and singing, he's saying in one of those interviews that, his singing is better. And maybe they worked on it, put some effort into it, the live stuff. I think he's not always putting in the full effort, maybe on some of his live shows that we've seen lately. But I think if you really want to, you can really put the effort into something.
Yes.
So, we'll see. The proof will be in the pudding, right? So
absolutely. Mr. America, what do you think about this comment?
Well, I think it's interesting, and I'm excited about the album. And a friend of the show, Mitch LaFon, tweeted yesterday that he agrees. He said Ace Frehley released solo album 10,000 Volts in February 2024. Trust me on this. The songs are there. The solos are there. The performances are there. This will be the best thing he's released since 1978. Bookmark this post and call me out in February if I'm wrong. I guarantee I'm not. Mitch LaFon.
That's a big thing to say.
With a bold statement.
Wow.
So I don't think Mitch just says that. Mitch is a rock critic. He's a rock journalist. I don't think he just throws that out there to kiss Ace Frehley's ass or anything like that. So coming from someone that's heard it, that's very, very interesting.
Yeah, I do know that there's going to be a single. Supposedly the first single will be released soonish, I guess. So I think that might be the 10,000 Volt song. I don't know. Which is, by the way, there's the Buffalo Rock City 2 thing. One of the guys, part of that, co-wrote that song too. So, which is an interesting kind of twist.
Very interesting. So, Daniel, what about you? I know that you're like a skeptic like me. I'll believe it when I see it, sort of guy.
Skeptics.
I would say a realist. Yeah,
realist. Okay.
Yeah. First off, the headline: Paul Stanley will look like an imbecile. I think that's a clickbait headline. I think that's Ace being. He was kind of frustrated with what Paul said about him on Howard Stern when he said that they would sound like piss if Ace, just like off the cuff, he tried to make a joke and Ace didn't take it very well, and so he was actually upset about that, and that's why he put it like that. Right. I think more he wants to show Paul and Gene that he still got the chops. And I do think he can pull it off. I think if he has the right guidance, the right people around him, people telling him like Ken said, put a little bit more effort, especially into the solos, because that was always his strong point. And lately, I think the later albums, I haven't really enjoyed many of the solos. I think he hasn't put in enough effort. When he talks about coming up with solos back in the day, he tried them. He they developed, and these days he seems just to go in and play some stuff and then
just rips it out.
Yeah, and pick something there and something there, and glue it together, and there it is. And what Ken said about Mitch LaFon, maybe Mitch LaFon is Lonnie. Lonnie said about I'm getting confused with that America sign on Lonnie's.
So who's that?
I'm new to the show, so I can see how you don't know who I am.
Yeah. So Lonnie mentioned Mitch LaFon saying that he guarantees that this will be the best. Maybe Mitch is trying to land an interview. I don't know. I'm not so convinced that he's honest, because many of these rock journalists, much like Eddie Trunk, Mitch LaFon, they are kind of brown-nosed at times. I think they because they don't want to bite the hand that feeds them. So I wouldn't put my house on that, but hopefully he's right, and I'm looking forward to the album.
Daniel, calling it like it is. That's what I love about the man who's the brother from the other mother. You got to love the honesty. Okay. But I agreed. I mean, maybe he's maybe he's working PR for Ace's record. Who knows? We don't know what's going on in the background, But look, I love Ace. Okay. Ace is, great. He's always been a source of musical inspiration. He's also been a source of comedy for me with his antics, but I think he's due. I think he's due for a good record, and I think that more importantly, the guitar community at large is really pulling for Ace to get at least one more good record out of him now, and maybe that's why he's having this happening with these guys from Trickster coming in to help him out. Because if you remember a while back when he started touring again, and he had Gene's backing band with those guys, that fantastic band that Gene had. Yeah. Those first couple of tours that he did with those guys were really good because he really kicked them. They kicked them in the ass quite a bit. And now I think he's kind of gotten used to them, and he's kind of gotten back to his sort of sloppier ways now with them, and he doesn't really care about their inspiration as much anymore. But maybe now with this, it'll re-energize him. Maybe it'll be some songs that he's going to be excited about playing live. So I, for one, I'm going to be hoping that this record does well for Mr. Ace Frehley. Yeah. Now, another thing that was brought up, and there was a recent interview about that Ken talked to me about just before we got on air, was that there was an interview, and I believe you said it was Gene saying that he was all open to having Ace come back during the farewell tour or the end of the road show, and that it was actually Paul Stanley who actually ex-nayed the return of Ace Frehley. Is this correct, Mr.?
Yeah, well, yeah, it was Ace who said that. That Ace or Gene was open to having Ace come back for the end of the road or the end of the last dates or whatever. But the real problem was Paul didn't want any part of Ace being back. So again, that goes back to the other comments. Paul saying that having him or Peter, it would mar their final performance. I would be excited as hell if I was at the last show or last couple shows and they appeared in any form, even not playing, if they somehow, got up there and took a bow with Gene and Paul and everybody else. I mean, I'd be, all for that even. I don't know how they would mar a performance. One person had stated, I think it was on the board, saying, well, you know what? Because it's a click track thing, and Ace wouldn't be able to follow the click track
of
it, because he has his own little sloppiness to him or whatever.
Yeah.
So I said, I don't know. I think you do that after a number of times, you get used to it, and it'd be like whatever,
Yeah.
So
let's go to Daniel for a second. What are your thoughts on this about the fact that it could be Paul preventing Ace?
Well, that's nothing new because Paul has been against Ace for quite some time, I think, unfortunately. I thought they were going to, get over their differences when Ace did that album with covers and Paul did one song, an old song.
Fire and Ice.
Yeah. That they seem to have hit it
Fire
on
and Water.
Real great. Yeah, Fire and Water.
Fire and Water.
That's right. And I felt that they had, found each other once again, but after that it went sour once again, and now I think there's no way back. I think it's over. And I don't know. I can't really see Ace come up there and play, with a click track and everything. But much like Ken said, maybe they can be there in some other way. Maybe just maybe a movie on the screen where they tell it like it is, say thanks to fans and so on, something like that. Just like paying homage to the band and telling the fans what they've meant and something like that. They wouldn't take that much effort, and they keep. Because Ace is after the money as well. We all know that. He wants to get paid. And there's really no reason to pay him when they sell out almost every concert. So, give him a few $1,000 and make him record a video and show it on screen. I think that's much more than that. I don't think they will be able to pull off.
So, Lonnie, agree, disagree?
Well, I think Daniel makes a strong point that, you look at the statistics and they keep posting these pictures in these arenas in the U.S. over the last couple of weeks that they've been back on tour. Another sellout crowd, another sellout crowd, another sellout crowd, to the fact that, they don't need Ace or Peter. They're doing quite well on their own. They don't need to play that card for these last 25 dates across North America.
Yeah.
And another point somebody brought up on the board this week was that he believed the real reason that Ace or Peter aren't involved, and this really struck me, was that if Ace and Peter were there, it'd be all about the fact that Ace and Peter were there, and it wouldn't be about Gene and Paul. And that's very interesting and probably very true. That it would take away from Gene and Paul's attention on these last 25 dates and Kiss's victory lap. And it would be more about the fact that, Ace Frehley showed up for the encore would be the headline. Or Ace Frehley played a few songs or played the show or whatever. I think it would take away from Ace and from Gene and Paul. And it's very interesting. The more I thought about that, you know what, that's true as well. But to Daniel's point, they are selling out these shows. At the same time, they don't need them.
Yeah. Well, look, we all know that, especially Paul's a look at me guy. So that's definitely something that could be true. Now, I, for one, don't know how I stand with this, because I think that while all these points are excellent that you guys brought up about this situation, I can't help but feel that they're going to somehow pull an ace out of the deck and have him show up on the last show. I'm going to go so far as to say this. I have a really strong feeling that both Peter and Ace are going to show up on the last show. And I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is. I have a piece of paper right here, and I have Ken's name, Daniel's name, Lonnie's name, and my name. And I want to go around the board here. Who thinks, yes or no, that those guys will show up on last night? Ken, yes or no?
Well, you know what? Didn't Ace? We just heard Ace got. Yeah, it's a tie.
Come on, this is an easy thing. Yes or no?
Some shows, but I didn't know those shows are around that time or not. But I'm gonna say no.
Okay, so Ken puts no. Daniel, yes or no that they'll show up?
No.
Okay.
No way.
Lonnie.
No, neither one of them to show up. Those last two shows are going to be exactly what we've seen the last few weeks.
Okay, and I put yes on mine there. Okay, so when the show happens, I'll have this piece of paper right here, and we will see what happens, and either I'll be wrong or I'll be the only one right.
What do you have to do when you're wrong, then, Mark? What's
you don't have to. There's no penalty.
Going to be?
I say Mark has to sit at a Waffle House for 24 hours, and he can take an hour off for every waffle he eats.
While listening to the
show. I think we should put a live stream, Mark listening to the whole complete Destroyer album, and we can all see his pain live on the KissFAQ podcast.
Yes, it's like the electric chair.
Wow. You guys are really hurtful to me. That's I feel great pain from that. But I'm just curious, because I honestly think that some things are Kiss are usually the band that's behind with everything. They're always like a record or two behind with things. But I have a feeling that if they know that this is sincerely the end of the road for them, I can't help but think that they're going to try to do something where people are going to say, "Wow, I really can't believe that happened." But I could be wrong.
They're not going to pay them enough money to do it. I don't think it.
I think we have one or two more things left here. I did mention the episode 497, which was the Buffalo Rock City 2 interview that that Julian did with the guys. I'm curious, did anybody here get the first record? What are your thoughts on it? And are you going to get the second one? Let's start with Lonnie, Mr. America.
I have not. I'm a bad one to go to. So.
You haven't gotten it?
Why don't we go to Ken?
Let's go to Ken.
Okay, I do have it, and it's fun. It's a fun listen, because it sounds like Kiss style, 70s style music and that sort of stuff. So I think the newer one might have more even 80s stuff on it. I think a mix, maybe 70s, but it's worth listening to. It's a fun listen to the take of those songs. It's pretty cool. So
great. Daniel, have you heard it? Do you own it?
I don't own it, but I would like to give a shout out to them for the videos that they've done to some of the songs. I don't know if you've seen them.
No.
If
Dr.
you go
Love.
to, yeah, it's a really cool video of Dr. Love, and I think they did one for maybe Psycho Circus, I think, and I think maybe maybe they did one for Freak as well. I'm not sure which of these songs ended up on the record, but I do think some of them are on the record. They have some great videos. So if you go to Buffalo Rock City's YouTube page, go and watch some of them. They're hilarious, and they're all in Kiss makeup and so on. So go and watch them. I think it sounds great. Good players.
Awesome. I mean, that's good to know, because I didn't even know about it. Thank you, Daniel, for that information, and I'm sure the listeners are thankful as well for that information. One last thing here to mention: tomorrow night is the Hollywood Bowl show for Kiss. That'll leave them with 17 shows left before the end of the line. Hollywood Bowl. Everybody thinks about the Beatles and all these classic shows that have happened in there. Really quickly, just going around the horn here, do you think anything might happen at the Hollywood Bowl? I mean, it's a special venue, or you think it's just going to be another one of the shows that they're going to get off the list? Let's start with Lonnie.
Well, Gene did promise surprises at the show several months ago.
You have a good memory.
However, I'm going to go with no. I think it'll be just like any other show that we've seen for the last year. And we'll move on to the next. Unfortunately,
wait.
I know it's a boring answer, but that's what I think is going to happen.
Wait a minute. You're telling me that Gene Simmons, the man who's like one of the founding fathers of this band, would actually say something that isn't true, and that's not going to happen at the show?
Right. Believe it or not, I think that's what happened, and I think that's what's going to come to fruition. Come on. We've been on here
to sell tickets,
and the reason why is very simple. We've been on this end of the road tour since January 31st, 2019. How many special surprises have there been?
The big donut.
I'm gonna go with the odds on that one.
Very good. But surely the voice of reason and the biggest Gene Simmons supporter known to man is thinking differently. You're expecting big things tomorrow night, aren't you, Ken? What's going on?
Yeah, don't call me Shirley. Anyway, that's a airplane thing. Maybe there will be a surprise. Maybe.
Good old Ken.
Optimistic Ken. That's your new name.
Well, I didn't say, the last show I said, Ace and Peter wouldn't be there. So there you go with that. But maybe Bruce will somehow appear on stage for a one song or something. That's all I can think might happen. Or David Grohl or something.
David.
Unfortunately, I'm totally unfamiliar with the Hollywood Bowl. I'm not sure what it is. Is it a big arena or what is it?
It's like an amphitheater.
It's an outdoor venue.
I have no clue, but I would be really surprised myself. That would be the biggest surprise if there actually is a surprise from Kiss. That would blow my mind. But I'm not seeing them doing anything out of the ordinary.
Yes, I think that's true too. I mean, Gene, I think just sometimes says stuff to get more attention on a show or more focus on it, and this is probably no different, than any other time. So don't expect much. But if it does, hey, Gene, you pulled a fast one on us, right?
Well, I think they're going to be selling. The surprise might be they're going to be selling Kiss churros. So that's a bit.
Churros, wow.
Kiss churros.
I do think at times Gene maybe wants to have a surprise, and then he goes over to Paul and says, "What about doing this song?" And Paul just say, "No."
He'll nix it. Yeah, I'm sure that's happened quite a few times. I just want to say, I'm sure that happens an awful lot.
Yeah, well, but I mean, I'd hope that it'd be more than just a song. I would hope that maybe that somebody would come out or something different happen on stage. Oh, who knows, right? But I guess at this point, any surprise would be a good surprise at this point. So, so there you go. That's the news for this week, and we're gonna do now something that we haven't done in a while. And this was on the suggestion from our good friend Daniel here, that we're gonna take a look at a few comments from previous episodes. So, Daniel, if you don't mind, how about a couple of comments from previous episodes?
Yeah, we do need to address the listeners a bit more, I think, because without them, I don't think we would be doing this still. Because we started out not having a lot of listeners, and at times we've had quite a few, and some episodes get a lot of comments. So I think we do need to address that. And I just assembled a few quickly here from some of the listeners. The first ones are from the episode you did about the final 25 dates.
Mm-hmm.
And Sylvie Rose 3032 wrote that, "Thank you, Lonnie, for your story." I also enjoyed that story, Lonnie, by the way. I share those feelings. I will miss it. But just as Julian said, the end is never really the end. Yeah, that was a good quote. And then Duke Groovy 5162, he said, "As long as this podcast and PRC keep going, I'm more than happy." That's good to hear. And we have Eric Nelson 7524. "I've listened to this podcast for the past several years, and it just keeps getting better with each episode. I love it. Keep it up." Thank you, Eric.
Yeah.
Gordon Jackson, "Great show, guys. This is the reason I like your show more than the others. Everyone is so genuine and love the band." These final comments are from the episode we did when we talked about our influences, if you remember, our popular cultural. Yeah. Psycho City 1972. "Hearing everyone's influences on this episode was super cool. Mine are similar to Ken's, with hearing Getting Alive 2 as my first album after hearing it at a friend's house. Then the rest was history." And finally, Gerald Hugley, maybe. "I agree with Daniel." Well, that's just because of that we need to add this one. I agree with Daniel. Full stop. No, not full stop. "I agree with Daniel that Seinfeld is the greatest.
Seinfeld, yeah.
But I don't agree that you should break up with your high school girlfriend if she likes REM." This Gerald, must have been listened to quite a few episodes, because that was something I mentioned like a year back.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's cool to hear, Gerald, that you're following the show. So you're really following us, and we do appreciate you. At times we forget to tell it, I think, because you are the most important part of the podcast. So
yes,
that's a few
absolutely.
Comments. There are many more, but yeah.
Thank you very much for that, Daniel. And yes, there are many comments there. I'm just grateful that there were no eggs thrown at me this time. As you know, I'm an easy target on here because of my charismatic comments on here. But
could I add something to that?
Sure.
I just listened to a Swedish podcast, and actually they kind of axed Ken and Lonnie, and they said that Canadian guy, he's my favorite. So it's not always
The hell with those two Americans.
You'll hear more about it in an upcoming episode. I'll show you a brief clip where Ken and Lonnie get axed big time. So look forward to the next episode of the KissFAQ Podcast.
Wow, that now makes me feel really warm inside now, because I always get the heat here.
Lonnie looks so sad. They're not that mean, but a little bit, yeah.
Well, come on, Lonnie gets a lot of love on this podcast. He has nothing to feel ashamed for on here. He's well loved, as is the voice of reason. But to know that overseas, in the lovely land of Scandinavia, that I am appreciated like this, I feel very happy to say that I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for that. So now let's move forward to this week's topics. So what we're going to do mainly is we're going to mainly go to topics from the board. So we have a couple lined up already, and Daniel has a really excellent one that we're going to talk about as well. But let's go on this first one here. And this is sort of a timely topic because, as you all know, the Beatles are releasing the Red and the Blue Greatest Hits album, and they're also releasing a song that was an old song that they worked on from way back in the 70s, and then they abandoned it in the 90s, blah, blah, blah. And this song is now being released because, thanks to AI, they were able to extract John Lennon's vocal from a demo, and we're able to use that to create a whole new version of this song, and it's being released as a single. So what am I trying to get at here? Well, I'm going to ask you this. What Kiss albums could benefit from the Beatles AI type technology? So what albums in the catalog do you think the AI technology could really help better, maybe, or do something to it that they weren't able to do, before this technology came into play? So why don't we start with the voice of reason? What do you think about this technology?
It's interesting. It's an interesting technology where they can break out, and it was all created during whatever, I guess, the Get Back movie thing, that stuff in the sessions, in order to get the sound right. Pull each instrument and vocal separately. This technology can grab that, and there'll be nothing else but like the vocal only, no bleed in or anything like that. It's kind of cool. So anyway, definitely. I think for sure, for me, Hotter Than Hell, I think could use that technology, because it's kind of you don't hear a lot of separation and stuff on it. It just seems to kind of be a dirge,
very
almost. Muddy, yeah. I think that could be definitely cleaned up with that technology. And then I would say even Hot in the Shade is another one I think could be improved on. I know there's a lot of songs there that maybe not worth even trying to redo, but that one, and maybe even Carnival Souls is another one that I would think that could benefit from it. Those are the ones. Maybe even Destroyer, because they say that's a hard one to do because of the way Bob Ezrin did his recorded mixing and you had more than one thing on one track and all that stuff. So I think that one could even benefit from it, possibly. So those are the ones.
All right. So what do you think there, Daniel? What do you think would be beneficial for Kiss to use the AI on?
I think Cadden had some valid points. I agree with most of what he said. But the first album that comes to mind is, of course, the one that sounds the worst, and that's in my mind Harder Than Hell. So if I would have to pick one, I would pick Harder Than Hell, and there are some great songs there, but most of the time I go to live versions or other versions because I don't like the way the album sounds. But I do hear that they are great songs, but somehow the production stands in the way of the great songs. So hopefully they can do something with that. On a side note, I heard last week a favorite Stone Temple Pilot song called Plush. And they had all altered, what's the name of the singer in Stone Temple?
Scott Weiland.
Scott Weiland. Yeah. So he sounded exactly like James Hetfield from Metallica. It was so eerie.
Oh, that kind of technology.
If you have 5 minutes and nothing to do, go to YouTube and search for James Hetfield Plush AI cover. It's eerie. And that really blew my mind, thinking, what if they could take Paul Stanley's voice and put it on some songs? That would be kind of great to hear, even if it's fake. So that was just a
and that's a different AI technology where it kind of mimics the sound of the person's voice or whatever. Just one other thing before we move on to maybe Lonnie. Another one would be interesting. Just popped in my head. Alive 2. You take out the crowd noise of Alive 2, and you don't need it, right? Maybe, I don't know what the original crowd noise was. Probably not that loud, obviously, as it is, but that would be interesting to hear it like that, almost like a soundboard. It would be kind of be more like a soundboard in a way. I think that would be great, actually.
I would like to hear a live 3 that way as well, because most of those songs, most of that crowd is fake. I think you can clearly hear it on "I Just Wanna." But that version of "Creatures of the Night" and "Deuce" and maybe "Watching You" as well. I would like to hear them without the crowd. So that's a great idea, Ken. Yeah, great idea.
Yes, Lonnie, what do you think?
For me, I think it's a unanimous decision on Hotter Than Hell. I think that's such a slam dunk pick. I mean, we talk about it quite a bit, that Hotter Than Hell would benefit from some kind of remix, redo, remaster, whatever, to bring out that sound that's just so muddied down and make it, sound, if you could imagine what Hotter Than Hell would sound like if it was mixed like Rock and Roll Over or something like that. What would that album sound like? But I think another one too that would really benefit from something like with AI is Unmasked. To pull out all the keyboard crap in the background and to hear that album as more of a rock album and not a pop album with all the other bullshit going on behind it. And hear what that album, could have sounded like when they were just rehearsing it as a band or something like that, as opposed to what we ultimately ended up with. I think some of your other ideas are great too, with Alive 2 and Hot in the Shade and that. But for me, it's those two. Those two have always just stuck out to me as missed opportunities in production.
Yeah. The thing with the AI technology, originally, I was a little distressed by it, with the whole idea of, being able to do these sorts of, alterations to songs with minimal effort, or doing these kinds of mixes with minimal effort after, having to learn how to do this stuff for real. But one thing I'm kind of grateful for with this is that a lot of this now means that you can now fix or get records that are not able to be done anything to. You can actually do something with them now. Like when we heard about those great fires that they had, where master tapes were lost and stuff like that, there's no chance of going back to fix anything. But now with this technology, as long as you have the 2-track masters somewhere, you can go in and dissect stuff out of those masters now and reconstruct it. Will it be as perfect as if you had the multi-tracks? Maybe not. But if you have a chance now to fix something, or to go in and make another mix based on this technology, maybe that might be beneficial, because like we just said, Hotter Than Hell is in dire need of a correction. Albums like, Unmasked as well, like you said, maybe remove all these keyboards and, put in some more decent guitar tones on there, and we could have a better record. And, I'm only going to touch Destroyer. Don't freak out, because I'm just going to say that because of how Bob Ezrin has a tendency of comping stuff onto his tracks. Like, he'll put together in stereo the rhythm tracks. He'll put together on stereos, the vocals, or he'll put stuff together. And he's always said that, like, because when they did the double platinum, for example, they weren't able to remix any of his songs because the way that he mixes it, they're unable to do it. And plus, he adds in a lot of the reverbs, and the delays are on those tracks, so you can't take them off, which is a big no-no. I don't know why Ezrin does that, to be honest with you, because you're always taught not to do that, right? But with this technology now, maybe it won't matter. Maybe you can go in now and correct that, and we can make a different version of, Destroyer now as well. But I was thinking that albums like Monster, where Paul was clearly having trouble with his vocals already at that point, maybe this AI technology could be beneficial in helping out with stuff like that, or even helping with a future live album, because I think right now the last thing Kiss wants to do is put out, live album from the 2020 tours, and because they're gonna be like, ugh, the vocals are gonna be pretty rough, right? And plus, you don't want to make it so obvious that you're using the actual, backing tracks for that. But with AI technology, maybe you can go in and find a way to put together a live album that's believable, and still sounds, that sounds decent, that you can use this technology to that benefit, because live albums are tricky to make. You get all kinds of noises and, some guy yelling in the audience that all of a sudden drowns out and comes into the microphone. All kinds of things can happen, So the AI technology could be good for that sort of a thing. So I'm sort of on the fence with the AI thing. Mm-hmm. Okay. So next, we have another thing that was brought up, which is from KissOpolis, which he basically just said, and I believe Ken can help me out with this because I was a little confused with this topic, was you can only choose one. So he's saying what? You can only choose between one of two solo albums?
Yeah, you only choose one. And then the picture shows Paul Stanley solo album and Gene Simmons solo album. So you can only choose one.
Which of the two would you choose outright? Let's go to Daniel.
Well, that's easy. It's Paul Stanley's album, of course. Gene Simmons' album, it's high notes, but it's a mishmash, much like his later solo album. I can't really, you get confused listening to that one. I recall the first time hearing it, the intro, so cool. But unfortunately, it was the best thing on the record almost. That intro, that scary intro. Yeah. Radioactive was okay, and then he has some beautiful songs. Like Man of a Thousand Faces and the one they did on Unplugged.
See You Tonight.
See You Tonight.
Yeah, See You Tonight. Great songs. But I think I was a bit too surprised by his choices. I was more into God of Thunder, Gene Simmons. Little did I know that Paul Stanley wrote that song as well when I heard it the first time. But Paul's solo album is just great to me. It's one of my favorite albums, along with Ace's album. I think that's a great album as well. And then Gene and Peter's, not so much.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go over to Lonnie. What's your selection?
It's Paul Stanley. I mean, that solo album is absolutely 5 stars. It is really high-end stuff. And the Gene Simmons one, it has grown on me over the years. I mean, when I first bought it, my brother and I, we weren't convinced that was Gene singing, because I'm of the Daniel camp, that what Gene Simmons sounds like, Plaster Caster Gene or Almost Human Gene or God of Thunder. I wanted the mean demon, and we thought we going back and getting the back catalog. Oh, the Gene Simmons solo album. This is gonna be great. It's gonna be all songs like those, and it wasn't. And like you turn it on, and it's the intro to Radioactive. You're like, oh, this is badass, and then all of a sudden, what's going on here? So, that being said, it has grown on me over the years. I like it a whole lot more than what I did when I was a kid. But Paul Stanley's album is front to back, start to finish, just almost a masterpiece, really, in my mind. A lot of people do consider it a masterpiece, and a lot of people, consider it to be one of their favorite Kiss albums, period. Is that Paul Stanley solo album. I mean, his songwriting was really, really high quality at the time, and those songs really show it. So it's Paul Stanley for me. It's an easy question.
Yeah. Before we get to Ken, I'll just say mine. I definitely would go with Paul. I mean, I've always said from the beginning that for me, it's always been, a toss-up between Ace and Paul. But of late, I find myself more leaning towards Paul, just because I think that like the songs overall are really well written. I mean, the one strike that always I have against Paul was Hold Me, Touch Me was a little sometimes hard to digest. Sometimes it's a little sappy, but the rest of the album is fantastic. And I mean, the song with a Carmine there on drums is fantastic. That one, I really love that song, and I think it's really well done. Gene's record, I have to agree with Lonnie. It's also grown on me as well over the years. I used to just not play it at all. At one point, I was just like, "This is not Gene Simmons," But later on, I started getting a little bit more into it when I started hearing about this is way back when I heard about Alex Van Halen and Eddie Van Halen performing on A Tunnel of Love and stuff like that. I was like, oh, okay, that made me more interested in it all of a sudden. So my interest was re-peaked in it again. And while it's not, it'll never make number 2 or 1 on my list, that record, it's definitely better than it was when I first heard it. So Ken, I have a feeling we know where this is going to go with you, but what's your choice?
Yeah, like a fine wine, albums get better. Like Gene Simmons' album gets better over the years. Yeah, for me, I've always liked Gene's. I mean, Paul's is a great album. I'll admit it's a great album. Yeah, Hold Me, Touch Me is kind of weird vocal kind of on that one. It's a good song, but his vocal is not. It's just strange to me on that one. But it's a very good album, all straight ahead, pretty much. Kiss 101 kind of music, for the most part. But Gene's is interesting. It's eclectic. It's different. It's you're expecting something and you're not exactly, the vocals, like Daniel said, expecting the mean Gene. I wasn't expecting anything necessarily, because I got into them just a year before, and like I said before, I listened to songs or music like the Carpenters, and Neil Sedaka. So, and those, with great voices, singing, and then I heard him sing "See You Tonight" or like Dan said, "Mr. Make Believe," in the other Gene voice. It's like, oh, wait a minute, he can sing different. He can sing other ways too. He's able to do whatever voice he wants to, pretty much, because we've heard him over the years. He can change his singing style to whatever, and so I like that, and I like the variety of songs. It was kind of weird at first. It's like, some of the songs are kind of, what are you going to do? The hard rock, or are you going to do the mellow rock, the Beatles rock, whatever? But I kind of like it because I listened to all that kind of different stuff anyway, so it didn't bother me. So, and I just enjoyed the heck out of it. I thought it was different from, it doesn't have to sound exactly like Kiss, because it's not just, it's Kiss, it's Gene Simmons, just a fourth of Kiss. So I always liked that album.
I think the album cover, kind of tricks you a little bit.
When you
see that album cover,
right,
you're not thinking you're going to hear "When You Wish Upon a Star."
It's kind of like the Wizard of Oz, when at the end, near the end, the guy's behind the curtain. Yeah. You have the big scary face on the screen, and then they pull back the curtain, and you see this old man, running the controls. Like, wait a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely. Just give me 1 second here, because something just happened. I got to correct here. So why don't we go to Daniel, because Daniel had the idea for the next topic. Remember, we were talking about for the message board. So how about we go to Daniel and tell us the one that you selected for this?
Yeah, if you haven't been to the KissFAQ message board, you should go there. There are a lot of great topics. And one was from Sam Weller. He wrote this. I think we'll keep it to 2. What 2 things would you do if you produced the next Ace solo album? I know the new one is already in the can, but how would you, for example, produce an Ace record? I can start. 2 things I would like to do with Ace when he was recording the album. The first thing is go back and listen to the great stuff. I would sit him down, listen to Parasite, especially the solo, go to Cold Gin, and some of the songs off of Trouble Walking. I like quite a few there, Shot Full of Rock and a few others. And listen to the solos and make him practice, develop his solos. Right. Give him some time to sit with the guitar and try it out, and give him some hints in order to create great solos. And make him, rediscover his catalog, because at times I feel he tries to be current, and the last few albums have been kind of heavy metal sounding. He's trying to play, heavy metal sound. He's better when he keeps it a little bit more poppy or hard rock, I think. The other thing I would do is I would, what was the other thing? I would sit him down and I would do that. I can't recall the other one. I had such a great thing, I thought. Let me see. The first thing was, and the other thing would be, I can't recall it.
Well, maybe you'll recall it. Keep thinking of it. Maybe you'll come back.
Okay, so why don't we go to Ken then with that? What would you do to make an Ace Frehley record better?
A couple things, make it better. But I would start and try to find out if he had some old tunes that he wrote back in the 70s that were maybe not used for records back then, and see if are any worth either finishing or just using, because he had an almost different riff, style back then. And I would try to see if there was some stuff that he could, finish off and use them today. The other thing is, I think one of the important things is, solos, but I think his vocals, which I'm hoping that on his new albums this way, we're working on the vocals to try to get them back to how they sounded, back in the 70s, and see if he could, pull that off. Work hard on that. So those are the two things I would try to go for.
I remember the second thing now.
All right,
Good.
go nuts.
The other thing was, some of the later songs I've enjoyed quite a bit, like "Rockin' with the Boys," but it's way too slow. I think you should look at the tempo in his songs, because even live now he seems to slow down some of the songs. The tempo gets sluggish, and that really
like Kiss.
Yeah, but even worse than Kiss. So some of the songs, they really don't sound the same, and then they get sluggish and a bit boring. So when I listen to "Rockin' with the Boys," I turn up the tempo like 1.25, and then it becomes a real rocker. So I would tell him, stay away from the slow rockers. You can have one or maybe two, but try to have more tempo in the songs, much like he did on, for example, "Trouble Walking," where he had, high-paced songs. So that's the other
interesting
thing.
Right. Okay. Ken, do you have anything to add with yours, or?
Nope. I've had every.
Okay.
I think I listed two things or
all
whatever.
Right.
So I'm good.
Mr. Lonnie.
Well, what I would do, and this would be really difficult to do, but it would be to sit Ace Frehley down, and and listen. Just sit and listen to those original Kiss albums, your 1978 solo album, and even Dynasty and Unmasked, and just listen to those albums, Ace. Listen to these albums. Listen to the guitar playing. Listen to these solos. This little pocket of music is why people love you so much. Is this tone, are these solos, and the way you played on these albums. Listen to this and don't try to reinvent yourself. Don't, just really have an open mind and listen to it, and don't be all like, this is what I do. I'm Ace Frehley. But sit and really listen to it and really try to understand why people love you as much as they do. Not because you release an album that has like a space title on it and silly things like that. Or a song that has spacey type lyrics on it. Well, I'm the spaceman, and you don't have to write a song about outer space. You really, really don't. But listen to those albums. Listen to that guitar playing. Listen to all those solos. That's why people love you. And really, really diligently try to replicate that. Not ignore what other people are telling you that you need to have, this over here, that it needs to be heavier. It needs to have space themes to it, or else people aren't going to buy it unless it has space in the title or volts in the title, for example, or whatever. It doesn't have to have space or volts or, well, I wrote a song called Shock Me, so I got to have an album about electricity. You don't have to. Be true to yourself and who you were when you were as creative as you ever been when you were in Kiss in the 70s.
Yeah. And that's a good point. And that's one thing I've always kind of wondered, like, why he got so fixated on this. Because, okay, obviously, songs like Shock Me, Rocket Ride, there's obviously connections there with, space, right? But on the 78 solo album, he had song titles like Speeding Back to My Baby and In Need of Love. He had regular song titles, and we love that album so much. So obviously you're right. They don't need to be all space, lyrics or sci-fi lyrics for them to be good songs. For me, the only thing I would maybe suggest as far as what I would do, Ace works better when he has a solid producer working with him, and he's always said that as well. He's always done he did his best work with Eddie Kramer, obviously. Now Eddie's getting up there now in age. Now that's not to say that he can't still do it, but maybe bringing somebody like that back in to help steer the ship might be something that's important to do as well. Because when you get some of these younger producer guys in with him, they're all like, wow, man, I'm with Ace Frehley, man, this is awesome. And then he's in control because like, yeah, I know I'm Ace Frehley, you love me. And then when they go out to him and suggest that, Ace, we should try this, they're like, listen, man, I'm fucking Ace Frehley, we're going to do this, and then he has control. But if he has Eddie and somebody who he always respected, the table is turned, and then I think that he would listen more and follow his lead more. So I always think that a good, solid, strong producer would be important. But with that said, I don't think that Ace would have a problem, or maybe Ace would benefit from having some of these guitar players. Like, I know he's dead now, but for example, Dimebag, when he was alive, he loved Ace. Could you imagine if he sat down with Ace and said, listen, let's write a really good Ace Frehley song together? I think that something like that might be beneficial to him as well. And, there's still a lot of people, competent, great guitar players out there that love Ace Frehley, who, it might help him to sit down and maybe write a song or two with them. Of course, keep it mainly his writing, because we want an Ace record, right? But these people would probably know how to refire him up with some of these things, like, dude, when I was 15, I listened to this record and you played this really cool riff. It's kind of like what Lonnie said. Sit him down, listen to some of these classic albums that he did, and reinvigorate him that way. It sounds so simple, but the problem is it's like quitting cigarettes. You'll only ever do it when you want to do it. You know what I mean? And he has to want to do it. So, yeah.
But I think just real fast, I'd like to add, because you talk a lot about Ace Frehley lyrics. We all know he's not a great lyricist, but a few times he's managed to hit the nail on the head, so to speak, like Cold Gin or even Rock Soldiers. So I would like him take it a little bit more serious and write an autobiographical song once again, because now he's come through on the other side. He's conquered his demons.
Yes.
He has managed to stay sober for I don't know how many years. Some question it, but he seems to have been able to get away from drugs and alcohol, and that's a real hard struggle. So maybe writing a song about that somehow, and it could be kind of interesting, because when he writes from his heart about his own experiences, he managed to put down some damn good lyrics at times.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. And like you said, back when he did Rock Soldiers, that was like in the 80s. And, at that point he was I think he was getting over that period of his time when he was on the drugs and alcohol, but obviously he had a relapse and other things happened. So you're right. Maybe he has, another story in him lyrically to do now at this point in his life. It's a good idea. So yeah, it's a great idea. So I think that's good. We got about an hour and 8 minutes here of stuff, and that's usually Julian's sweet spot for recording episodes. He just usually like going much longer than that. So I think we'll leave it at that. So for all you watchers out there, what do you think? What are your thoughts on some of the things that we talked about? What's your thoughts on the illegal records that are coming out? What do you think about Ace's comment about Paul Stanley being an imbecile? What do you think about, what we just talked about now? What could Ace really do to better, a future record? We respect your thoughts. We want to hear from you, just like Daniel said. Leave your comments and, check out all our episodes. Again, don't forget to check out Lonnie. I keep saying Lonnie. Don't forget to check out Julian's latest episode with the Buffalo Rock City guys there. And and until next time, we have Ken, Daniel, Lonnie, and myself. Thank you very much for watching the KissFAQ podcast, and we will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.
Thank you for spending time listening to the KissFAQ podcast today. All sales are final, there are no refunds. If you'd like, look us up on Facebook or come over to the KissFAQ message board and discuss the topic we've broadcast today. Don't forget to rate us on iTunes, Spreaker, or wherever you've listened to the show. We hope you'll join us again.